So Proverbs 10:26. I'll give you the page number too. I don't have the verses on the screen anyway, so if you saw that, you'd just see a few notes, and I'll tell you what you're missing. Okay, so Proverbs 10:26. We're going to look at several verses here on a topic called laziness. I was thinking the more our technology advances, the more we can have idle time. And it seems like the more that technology works for us, the more we can sit around. And what do we want to do when we sit around? We want to look at a screen. All right? And you have to evaluate your screen time as I have to evaluate my screen time, because I will tell you that I could watch YouTube videos all day, every day. And I would never watch the same one. And I could find all kinds of hobbies that I was interested in watching, from sports to woodworking to topics, debates about the Bible, and the list goes on and on and on. And you know what happens on YouTube whenever you watch a certain thing? On the side is all these recommended videos. And while you're watching one video, you're looking at the side, you're like, oh, I'm going to click on that next. And then while you're watching that one, you're looking at the side like, I'm going to watch that one next. And before you know it, hours have gone by, and you're like, oh, I got to make dinner. I got to mow the grass. I got to feed the kids. Oh, I got kids, right. Okay. I got to let the dog out. The dog's been bothered. Okay. So there's a lot of other things that we should be doing that life comes at us, and whenever we're watching a screen, often we forget about life. Okay. And we are training the next generation, I think, to be more lazy than almost any other generation in history. And Proverbs has a lot to say about laziness. And the opposite of laziness, if you were to see the screen, is diligence. Okay, so I'll give you a definition of diligence. You can look up the word diligence, but you'll see that multiple times in our verses today. There was, a couple years ago, this commercial. I don't remember what the commercial was about. I don't know the brand. I think it was an insurance company. But it said, some people like getting hit in the back of the legs with a shopping cart. And it shows someone in the grocery store, and they get hit in the back of the leg, and they start laughing. Other people love walking into a glass door and spilling everything that they're holding, and they watch someone walk into a glass door. And for everybody else, there's this. So most of us don't like getting hit in the back of the leg with shopping carts, and we don't like working. And there was a list of things, and they were all funny, right? And that those images stick in our brain. We think that's hilarious. Well, that's what Proverbs 10:26 is. He gives us a couple scenarios that are really, really frustrating. Okay, and it's like that commercial. Okay, so what does he say in verse 26 of Proverbs 10? Like vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes. Now, I don't know hardly anybody. There might be a few weird people that drink straight vinegar. I know apple cider vinegar and other vinegar is, because it's good for you. They mix it with something, and you still, even mixing with something, doesn't taste good. All right, and people are like, oh no, it's good for you, so I'm going to drink this, and they're trying to be tough, right? But if you just took straight vinegar, it smells awful. You put it in a cup, you're like, oh, you know what it does? It like bites your teeth, okay? That's what it says here, like vinegar to the teeth. And then we have campfires. We have sit out in our backyard with a fire pit, and everybody, if you come to my house, and I love fires at a fire pit, everybody watches which way the smoke is going, right? Because if the smoke is going this way, no one wants to sit on this side of the fire. Who wants to sit there and like smoke just coming in your face? Oh, this is great. I just love this, right? Nobody likes that. So that's what he says here. Vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes. All things we try to avoid. If you've done it once, you're like, okay, I don't want to do that again. That was a bad idea. That's what he says here. That is like, so is the sluggard or the lazy person to those who send him. You might do it one time, and you're like, not again. Now, we have all worked with lazy people. Now, what happens when you work with a lazy person? If you're not lazy, they will let you do the majority of the work. While when the boss is around, oh, yeah, no, we're digging this hole together, right? Oh, no, we're busy. And they look busy just when the boss is around, and they'll let you, and they are fine with you doing the majority of work. Or they're really good at talking, and talking isn't part of the work. It's like, hey, let's get the food in the bag at the restaurant. Let's get the table served. Let's clean up. Let's dig this hole. Let's do, and talking is not part of it. But lazy people are really good at avoiding work. And if you send a lazy person on a mission, it will be better for you to get vinegar in your teeth and smoke in your eyes. That's what Solomon's saying here. We've all been there. We're all like, I'm not going to hire this person again. They're going to do talking, and they're not going to work, and someone else can hire them. And that other person that hires them, Proverbs 10:26 is a good reminder, right? Okay, so like vinegar to the teeth. And then chapter 18, so go over on page, I didn't tell you the page for that, but on page, Proverbs 18, 641 in your Pew Bible. These are introductions. So understanding how to avoid interactions with lazy people. Verse 9 of Proverbs 18, whoever is slack in his work is a brother to him who destroys. So laziness and destroying are in the same family. If you hire a sluggard, a lazy person, you're like, not again. And then you realize his brother is in jail because he armed robbery or destruct vandalism, something that he destroyed, right? You're like, wow, it runs in the family. This family is out of control. Proverbs say, they lack discipline, right? And so Proverbs says here in 18:9, whoever is slack in his work, who's lazy in his work, his brother likely in the family is someone who destroys. So would you like to hire someone who's lazy, and then he says, oh yeah, my brother's looking for work too, and you hire him, and you have to come behind him all the time, and while you're trying to dig a hole, he's throwing dirt back in it. You're like, no. We're taking dirt out of the hole. And he doesn't listen. He's like, no, I want to be done with this job. Let's fill it back in. Well, we can't fill it in until we get the pipe laid in the bottom of the hole. No, I'm done. And you're like, you know what? It would be easier for me to do this work by myself than to have you boys on the job with me. So eventually you're like, okay, you're lazy and you're destructive. You guys can go find somewhere else to work. That's what Proverbs 18:9 says. We've all worked with people like this, okay? Now, if someone's young, really young, like 3, 4, 5 years old, and they want to help raking leaves, they want to jump in the leaves instead of help, right? And that's fine. But when you get a 13, 14, 15-year-old, and they're going to help you with the leaves, and they don't help, you're like, okay, you're not 3, 4, and 5 anymore. It was fun to jump in leaves then, but we had a job to do. I mean, we got large trees. There's a lot of leaves on the ground. We got to get busy. You have to be productive. I'm going to show you how to do it, and they don't want to learn. You're like, eventually, I'm done helping you, and you're done helping me. So go inside and watch YouTube, right? That's what we want to say. Okay, so we got the screen back, all right? So introduction. Do you like the taste of straight vinegar? No. Do you enjoy smoke from a can? No, you don't. Do you want to hire someone who would make your job harder? No. Do you want to hire someone who is dangerous, like a destroyer? No. Okay? So we have to learn. And there are many, many verses in Proverbs. I'm just going to show you some of them. There are many verses in Proverbs about laziness. Why? Because wise people are not lazy. Fools are lazy. And if you're in the habit of foolishness, you have to learn how a fool thinks and how a fool acts, and then say, I don't want to be like that anymore. And you need to ask someone who's really close to you who has hired you and let you go, saying, why did I get let go? What do I need to learn so that I don't keep getting let go from every single job I get? Because then you're stuck with minimum wage. And you can't survive in New England on minimum wage. Am I right, adults? Absolutely not. You're going to have to work 100 hours a week, and then barely you're going to make ends meet if you're thinking minimum wage. But if you're lazy, that's your future. That's what Proverbs says too, and I'll show you that in a second. Laziness and diligence are compared. This word diligent has this idea of being sharp or well-honed or skillful. How do you are well-honed or skillful? How do you learn that? By hard work, practice. If you're an apprentice, the guy who's the master of your trade says, I'm going to show you how to do it. And if you're lazy, you're not listening. When he shows you how to do it, you're not going to follow that. And then he's going to say, I got to let you go. You're a bad apprentice because you're lazy. But anyone who is a hard worker, they can pretty much learn any skill or almost any skill. There are skills that I try to be diligent, like cooking or mechanic work. And like, don't ask me to make stuff for fellowship lunch because you don't want to eat my stuff. Don't ask me to work on your car. Most things, because it's not, there's other people that are better working on cars than me, right? And so I know what I'm not good at, but there are other things that I'm try to be diligent at and try to be well-honed, right? But that's the diligent. And you watch someone who's diligent in one area and they try to be diligent in other areas as well. They're careful. They're hard-working. And that's the diligent here, okay? And we all have worked with someone who worked hard. And when you work with someone who works hard, you know what happens? You want to work hard yourself. I did roofing with these guys in college, in grad school. And I'd watch these guys put a roof on at $8 square an hour. Okay, and for sake of illustration, the side of our church here, one guy fast. If it was stripped and ready to put the shingles on, he could probably do that section of the roof right there in about 4 hours himself. You're like, whoa. Yeah, and you watch those guys work and you're like, whoa, that's the next level. And he says, I'll pay you by how many shingles you put down. And when that is the mindset, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'll show you how to go fast. I'll show you how to be straight. And we're in South Carolina, and it's sometimes 90 degrees. You're like, it was black shingles. It was awful. I hated that job, but it taught me hard work. And he hired guys who did not know how to work, and my boss said, I'm going to teach these boys how to work. And I'm going to show them, work right next to them. He was only like 6 years older than they were, but he showed them how to work really hard. And there's money to be made. There's a life to live that requires, and all jobs require diligent work. Now, some of it's manual labor, some of it's mental labor, some of it is talking, some of it is just sitting there crunching numbers, all kinds of different skills that we can learn. But the diligent are compared with the lazy in many verses. So go to chapter 10, and we are back in chapter 10, verses 4 and 5. These are our memory verses, okay? So we're working on these verses. And these are no-brainers. Whenever you put two phrases together, like often Proverbs does, you compare these things. And you have to show young people who are naturally lazy, they're trying to find the easy way out all the time, let their brother or sister do the work because they're more diligent and the lazy person. And you have to show them these verses and say, look at what Proverbs 10:4 says. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a prudent or wise son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. So with laziness comes poverty and shame. Diligence leads to wealth and wisdom. Is it like this in Solomon's day, 3,000 years ago? Is it like that today? All the adults are shaking their head. Yeah, it is. It's like that today. If you want to have poverty and shame, just be lazy. It's real easy. Laziness is so easy to do. It comes natural to all of us, right? We're going to sit on the couch, click through channel after channel after channel, scroll on your phone for hours. It's so easy to do those things and accomplish nothing. It's so easy to accomplish nothing. But with laziness comes poverty and shame. Diligence leads, hard work leads to wealth and wisdom. That's Proverbs 10. Go over to chapter 12, one page over on page 636. Page 636 in your pew Bible, and verse 24 and 27. Proverbs 12:24. The hand of the diligent will rule, while the slothful will be put to forced labor. Okay, now we don't have forced labor today, so I'm going to make that how we do think, and that's where I said minimum wage comes in. Diligence leads to leading and wealth. Managers are diligent. Lazy people often never get a management position. Why? And they pay more. Why? Because they're lazy. And the owner or the other managers are looking around at the diligent workers in fast food, in trades, in any area, and they say, who's diligent here? Let's promote them. Let's train them. They're hard workers. How about the lazy people that are always on their phones in private? And we've all seen it, right? You're not supposed to have your phone out if you're eating fast food. And I watch people at the drive-thru, and I'm sitting there waiting for my food, and the kid pulls out his phone, and he's like, looking around like, hey, buddy, I see you on your phone. You're not supposed to have your phone, right? It's a no-brainer. Okay, so what does laziness lead to? There are 5 verses here. We just looked at the 2 in 12. We just looked at 1 in 12. 12:24. The slothful will be put to forced labor. That's almost like slavery, okay? And if you couldn't pay your bills because you were lazy, you had to sell yourself into slavery in Bible times. You'll see that. And when it comes to laziness, and we watch lazy people, and we try to warn them, like, you're destined for minimum wage. You know what minimum wage really is? I wish I could pay you less, but because I can't, this is what I got to pay you. You're worth less than this, but the state says I have to pay you this. So when they say minimum wage, whatever amount, and you think as a young person, I'm shooting for minimum wage, and Massachusetts has a higher minimum wage than New Hampshire, so I'm going to work in Massachusetts. That is an awful way to think. That's how lazy people think. Why? Because minimum wage leads to hardship and poverty. Now, I understand there are some people that cannot lead, they cannot manage, they can't function at a high level, but everyone can work hard. And if you are struggling to work hard, learn what Proverbs is telling you. Look at where minimum wage thinking leads. It leads to hardship and poverty. Verse 27 of chapter 12 continues. Whoever is slothful will not roast his game. He may get some as he hunts, he may shoot an animal, and that's his livelihood, that's his food. But he's so lazy, he won't even skin the animal and roast it. He's just so lazy. Oh, I shot it, now I'm just going to figure it out, I don't really care. And they don't do it. They aren't diligent. But the diligent man will get precious wealth. He will work hard. He's so lazy. There's other, some Proverbs, obvious pictures of wealth and how foolish lazy people really look. Verse 4 of chapter 13, same page, 636, 13:4. They're up here on the screen, or the references, 13:4. So let's look at 13:4. The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. People who are lazy have the same desires as the wealthy, as the diligent, but they don't get anything. Why? Because all they have are desires. I wish I had a better job. I wish I made more money. And they talk like that. And they have all these desires, but they have no motivation to work hard. All they have are desires. And they tell you all their desires, and you're like, buddy, you know why you're getting minimum wage? Because you're lazy. Oh, I'm so offended. You triggered me. Really? Get to work, man. If you get to work, the manager will see that you're a hard worker, and he'll want to promote you. He'll want to pay you more. He'll want to keep you here. Just have to get to work. Work hard. Do what the boss says. Not being on your phone while you're on the clock is not hard. But if you're addicted to laziness, it's really hard. It's impossible. I can't do it. Proverbs 14:23. Look over on page 638. Proverbs 14:23. In all toil, that's hard work, there is profit. But mere talk, that's opposite of hard work, tends only to poverty. And like I said earlier, whenever you're hired to do, if I hired you to do roofing, and I was a roofer for a little while, and all you want to do is talk on the roof, I'm like, no, this is the cool part of the day. It's going to get hot today. We got to get the shingles down. Let's go. It's not time to talk. Talk while you work. And if you're working with someone who they only want to talk, and when they talk, they stop working, you're like, no. We got a job to do. It's not talking. Talking is not our job. Let's get this done. If you can talk and work, fine. If you can't talk and work, then stop talking. And let's work hard. Because what's this Proverbs 14:23 say? Mere talk leads only to poverty. Some people are really good at talking and really bad at working. All right, 15:19. Last verse in this category here, verse 19, 639 in your Pew Bible. 15:19. The way of the sluggard is like a hedge of thorns, but the path of the upright is a level highway. We've all walked through, if you haven't walked through a woods or walk on trails, there are some times you don't want to leave the trail because next to the trail on either side are briars. If you mow the back part of our field here, do not get on the right side because that's where bushes are and they'll catch you. And they'll tear your arm. And you don't want to go on a path through there. Okay, so whenever you look at the life of someone who is a sluggard, their way of life is like a hedge of thorns. It's awful. It's unuseful. You can't even go that way. You can't hire them. You can't use them in the job. And so, but whenever there is the diligent or the upright, verse 19 said, is like a level highway. How fast can you go through briars? If you have the right, like, tough jeans on or something, you can step on briars and get over them, but it is really slow. How fast can you go on a level highway? Oh, phew. Okay, this is talking maybe with a horse, maybe with a horse and buggy, whatever, in Bible times. Still, you'd have to hack through all the briars to get your horse to go a little ways, but on a level highway, you can make progress. And look at the comparison with these verses here, how foolish laziness looks and how wise hard work, diligence, uprightness looks. Continuing, diligence is consistent and selfless, while laziness is hasty and selfish. At the root of the problem of laziness is selfishness. Selfish people are lazy. Lazy people are selfish. Why don't people want to work hard? Because they're selfish. Why do you have to really prod people? Because they're really self-centered, self-protecting. And that's what it says here in 21:5. So go over to chapter 21, verse 5, page 644. 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. So a diligent, hardworking, sharp person plans out their day, works hard, and it leads surely to abundance. They have money enough to live on and provide for their family. But, verse 5 says, everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. What does this look like? This looks like DraftKings. This looks like I'm going to get wealthy really fast. This is like the lottery. And whenever the lottery, the Powerball is whatever, 100 million. Lazy, you know what lazy people think? Wow, I wish I could just go buy some $5 tickets and win $100 million, and then I can really live how I really want to live. With a pointless life, but I have a lot of money in the bank. How many people win the lottery? Okay, it's your better chance of getting struck by lightning. Okay, it's really, really bad odds. But this is how lazy people think. Get rich quick. You heard this today, recently, a lot. Passive income. Lazy people are passive income, passive income, passive income, and they're searching all, and their goal in life is to live and sit and do nothing, and I'll have all this money come in, right? And like you're like that's unrealistic. Okay, but so and so influencer on YouTube, I saw it, right? It's like no. Hasty to get wealthy people are selfish, self-centered, and is not wise. It's folly. Get rich quick schemes. And anyone who says, and you may be diligent, but anyone who says, hey, I'm going to give you a lot of money for a very little effort, you better have you ought to be skeptical of that. Red flags ought to be going off. Okay? If you don't understand it, gurus say, don't invest in it. Proverbs 21, let's look at 25 and 26, same chapter. Look over to verses 25 and 26. The desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. And then 26, all day long he craves and craves. He has all these desires, but the righteous gives and does not hold back. It's like the New Testament in Ephesians 4 that says, but let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, so that he has to give to those who have need. So what do we see the diligent here in verse 26? The righteous, the diligent person. He has extra money. And because he has extra money, he's able to be selfless. So selflessness is where we're going with wisdom. Wise people are selfless. You look at a dad or a mom who gets up early and is diligent, and some of them have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet in New England. I get it. They have to work long hours, work overtime. And the next generation doesn't understand. Why is mom and dad never home? When they are home, they're always tired? Because they have to work hard. They have to work long hours. They have to be diligent. And then you watch mom and dad put money in an offering box. And you're like, why are you working so hard and then you're giving some of it away? Because diligent, wise, righteous people are working hard so that they have extra to give away. Let him who stole, don't steal. What does a thief do? Easy money. What's a lazy person thinking? Easy money. I don't want to do any hard work. I'm just going to find passive income. I'm going to take from other people. But a wise, righteous person is not quick to get wealthy. They're consistent. They're selfless. And when they're working hard so that they have extra, it says there in verse 26, the righteous gives and doesn't hold back. The lazy person has all these desires, but they don't have money to give away. And the righteous person, because he is diligent and faithful and hardworking, he has extra money to give and not hold back. He is selfless. All right, so the lazy and diligent are compared in these verses. The lazy are diligent at making excuses. See, lazy people are diligent. What are lazy people diligent at doing? Making excuses. Have you ever worked with a lazy person why they can't dig a hole? Well, it's my back. Well, the doctor told me I shouldn't lift it. Now, there are legitimate times when you have surgery and other things that you shouldn't lift certain things. But if you're just making that up to get out of work, eventually your coworkers are like, no, you're just making excuses. What are some of the excuses that we see here in chapter 22? The same verse shows up in 22:13 and 26:13. So let's look at 22:13. The lazy work really hard at avoiding work. Now that's not profound. That's hopefully really simple. But whenever you're trying to help a lazy person to not be lazy, you say, you are really, really diligent at avoiding work. Wrong way to think. Wrong way to live. It leads to poverty, leads to shame, it leads to all the things that we saw in the last slide. But the lazy work really hard at avoiding work. And so if you start hearing excuses from your children, grandchildren, employees, you're going to have to teach them, okay, you're going to have to work hard sometime in life. And when you have the most energy, 14, you can get a job around here. Till you're 64. If you will work diligently from 14 to 64, you should be okay. Now, I understand there are other things that come in that you may have to help family that have issues, or someone may pass away unexpectedly. You have to provide for someone else, or you may have physical trouble. But usually, if you will work hard when you have the most energy, you'll be fine. But Proverbs 22:13 says this. The sluggard says, "There's a lion outside. I shall be killed in the streets." So mom and dad say to the sluggard, "Get to work, son." And son says, there's rumors that there's a lion around here. And so, because in Israel there were lions. But your dad's like, take a sword. Right? There's always a solution for excuses. But lazy people work hard at avoiding work. Beware if you're always giving excuses to your parents why you can't. Can't mow the grass today, Dad, it's too hot. Okay, so mow it early in the morning. Well, I got to sleep in. Well, mow it at night. Well, there's bugs outside. You could hear, and you had probably given excuses. I gave excuses to my grandparents when they wanted us to dig all these rows in corn and then weed all this corn. I'm like, why don't we just go to the store and buy corn? Why are we doing all this work? And my grandfather and grandmother were both farmers. And I'm like, John, shut your mouth and dig the weeds, right? And I'm 8, 9 years old. I'm like, I'll just go to the store and buy corn. I did not want to do all this hard work. In the summer, it's hot, right? But I had to work really hard at avoiding work, and I wasn't allowed to as a kid for the most part. 26:13 is very similar, so we'll stay in 26 and look at 3 verses together. 26:13 to 15. Over to 26, bottom of page 649. The sluggard says, "There's a lion in the road, there's a lion in the street." You can see how that's similar. And now verse 14. "As the door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard on his bed." When you walk out these doors, we often don't think about doors. What holds those doors in place? What holds those doors true and not hit each other when they come together? It's the hinges, right? And so what is hinging the life of a sluggard? Where's his hinge? His bed. For some of you, it's your computer chair. It's the couch. No one can get you off of that. And you make all kinds of excuses so you can stay there for hour upon hour upon hour and waste time. And you watch. The sluggard is going to give all excuses, and all he does to avoid work, he just turns over in bed. And his bed is his hinge. He's such a lazy person. His bed is his hinge. As the door turns on its hinges, so does the sluggard on his bed. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't accomplish anything. All he does is turn over. Verse 15. "The sluggard buries his hand in the dish, and it wears him out to bring it back to his mouth." So funny. 1924 says the same thing. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish and will not even bring it back to his mouth. Some people are so lazy, you put food in front of them. They put their hand in the dish and they're like, "Oh, it's too much work to put it to my mouth. I can't do this. This is hard work. I got to work that muscle right here. My biceps are too small. I can't do that." And so I just sit there, their hand in the dish. You're like, are you serious? Okay. What do they need? They need the discipline that we saw earlier. They need the warnings of, you're putting your hand in the dish and not even be able to put it to your mouth. You got selfish problems. Your life is leading to poverty and shame. Get your hand out of the dish, get it in your mouth, get some energy, and get to work. That's what the sluggard needs to hear, right? But the lazy work really hard at avoiding work. They work really hard to protect their comfort. Where's their most comfortable place? The couch, the bed, the chair, wherever they are most often found, avoiding work. And they're sitting there making excuses. I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. And you guys are all smiling because you know people or you've done this. When you know you have to do something and you're making an excuse, you're like, okay, you have the physical ability, you have the tools to do it, so get off the couch and go mow the grass. I don't care if it's 90 degrees. Mow the grass and then get a drink. Get a drink before you go mow the grass. Wear a hat. Wear bug spray. You can see how we're shooting right through all of these excuses because the sluggard is always trying to protect their comfort. And you're saying, life is not about your comfort, buddy. Life is about being diligent and working hard, whether you're comfortable or not. Talk to the Marines about being comfortable. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to tell you to do 50 push-ups, right? Like, see how comfortable that is, right? And so we often send lazy people to the military because they're not learning how to work hard. You're like, okay, just go off into the military, and they'll have to teach you diligence because you're not getting it. And often that works. But the lazy work hard at protecting their comfort. We got to keep moving. Learning from others' laziness. Look with me at chapter 24. This is what we read. Chapter 24, verses 30 to 34. Anytime there is an obvious lazy person and you're close to them, it is an opportunity to teach your children. Okay, we just came from uncle, aunt, cousin, relative, neighbor. Someone is extremely lazy. They're known for just being on the couch. They're known for just watching hours and hours and hours of TV, and they are physically able to do all this yard work, and their yard looks a mess. Look at verse 30 to 34. I passed by the field of the sluggard, by the vineyard of the man lacking sense. So sluggards lack sense. Lazy people lack sense. This is why they're fools. And behold, the field or the vineyard was all overgrown with thorns, and the ground was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. So protecting it would be like fences today. Stone wall was broken down, so animals would just come in and eat the vineyard, the grapes right off. And their fields weren't even plowed. Verse 32, then I saw and considered it, and I looked, and I received instruction. That word also can mean discipline. I read a translation this morning that used word discipline there. Whenever we're around lazy people, I don't know if you've been around a hoarder. When you go to a hoarder's house and there's just paths, that's laziness, right? People just let trash accumulate all around them, and you're like, ugh! You know what you do whenever you leave a hoarder's house? You go home and start throwing stuff away. You're like, all right, I'm going to get rid of this, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm like, I am not going to be like that. And you look at people that have all kinds of junk cars and junk everywhere in their yard. You're like, okay, what in my yard needs to go? Like, I want to have a junkyard in my house. Okay? You learn from other people's laziness. When you watch a lazy person work, it helps you hopefully to say, I do not want to be like that. I don't want my kids to be like that. I don't want my grandkids to be like that. Please learn from other people's mistakes. That's what wise people do. They learn from other people's mistakes, and laziness is a mistake. It's lacking sense. You need to wisely notice the living conditions of the lazy. Their house is falling in around them, and they're physically able to fix it, and they don't. They're turning on their bed like a hinge, door on a hinge. Then realize what causes the laziness. Verse 33, they are loving sleep, they're loving slumber, they're loving the folding of the hands to rest, and you come away with that saying, okay, we are not sleeping 12 hours a day or sitting at our computer for endless hours of nothingness. So we got to avoid this laziness. We'll rest a little time, we will sleep an adequate amount of time, and then we get out of bed and we're going to do something. Or a little slumber, we're not going to be known for rolling over on our bed. A little folding of the hands to rest. Notice the word little there. These things are appropriate, but not known for it. Okay, you watch the life of a diligent person. Are they known for resting? No, they're known for working hard. Okay, because they have this mindset. A little sleep, a little slumber. I do have to sleep. I do have to rest. I do have to take a nap at times. But we don't want to be known for sleep, rest, idleness. Verse 34. The results of laziness. And poverty shall come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. And then when the lazy get the consequences, they act like a victim. Like, I just can't get ahead. All these people, these creditors are calling me, and I'm going to get foreclosed on, and they give all these excuses, and you watch their life, and you're like, buddy, this is not hard. What is hard for you is to get out of bed and get to work and put your hand out of the dish and into your mouth. Like, that's what's hard. So get busy. There's sure results of laziness. We already saw that in the other slide, but here, again, when we watch the lazy life, it always heads in this direction. We have to avoid laziness. I hope that's pretty clear. Final slide here, motivation toward diligence. What are some motivations that God has built in? And God is the author of life, and He's designed this planet to work a certain way. We are on His planet, and if we will learn His wisdom, we will avoid the path of the sluggard. So God gave us all the desire to eat. Is there anyone that doesn't have a desire to eat? When you're sick, right? You're not healthy, maybe. But all of us have a desire to eat. The longer I preach, the more your stomach's like, ooh, it's been a while since breakfast. Okay? We all have a desire to eat. That's a good desire. You know what that desire should motivate you to do? Work. You're like, I don't see the connection. Okay, well, Proverbs gives us a connection. Look at 16:26. There's a connection between the God-given desire to eat and hard work. 16:26 of Proverbs says this, a worker's appetite works for him. His mouth urges him on. And when you're a dad or you're a husband, and you have little kids in the home, and they cannot work because they're 0 years old, they're 1 year old, they're 2 years old. They can't get a job. No one's going to hire them. You know they're expecting you to bring food to them. And if that doesn't motivate you as a parent, I can't help you. Because God put in us a desire to feed and provide for our family. That means we work hard and they can eat. So God gave us all the desire to eat, and the way to provide food for ourselves and our families is to work hard. That's what we see in 16:26. 19:15, over one page, 19:15 says this, slothfulness casts into a deep sleep, and an idle person will suffer hunger. When you go visit a lazy person who could work, and they're hungry, you feel sad, but you shouldn't feel sorry for them. You're like, look at Proverbs 19:15. You're hungry because you're lazy, and that's an easy fix. Go get a job. Work hard at that job. Get a promotion at that job. Start making more money at that job. Be diligent. Be sharp, and you will have money to feed yourself and your family. 20. Over one page, 20 verse 4. The sluggard does not plow in the autumn. He will seek at harvest and have nothing. If you don't, and in a time where you have to plant crops, you have to get your field ready in the spring. You have to plant crops in the early spring, and then you have to get all summer. And if you don't do that, you can't catch up. You can't wait till the beginning of fall and say, oh, I was lazy in the spring or the summer. Now I gotta catch up. What is that like with life? If you start saving for retirement at age 60, you're like, everybody's going to say, not smart. What'd you do with all your money from 25 or 20 to 60? Well, I just blew it, or I was lazy. You're like, okay, there's your problem. Okay? So we're on the front end trying to tell young people, work really hard, so that you have enough for yourself, so you have enough to give away, so you have enough to save, so that when you are 80 years old and you can't work physically, that you have enough money in the bank to live on. This is wisdom. This isn't rocket science. This is just like, oh, right, this is how God designed life to work. When you have the energy, you should be working. I've told how many young people at 20, 25 years old, you should be working 60 hours a week. And they're like, They act like they can't, act like I just punched them in the stomach. I said, I've told guys this, go talk to these 4 or 5 guys in our church and ask them how many hours a week they work. And they'll tell you. And I bet you it's between 50 and 60 hours a week. And they're like, oh, no, I got to have my free time. When am I going to watch YouTube? I've got to have this. No, you don't. I can't tell you in college when I had little kids and I was in grad school, I didn't even watch sports. I couldn't tell you anything about sports, and I like sports. I couldn't tell you anything about politics. I didn't watch TV. I didn't have time to watch TV. We didn't have smartphones back then. And that was only 25 years ago. I didn't need that. What I needed to work hard because I had 2 little boys at home, and my wife wasn't working. And so it was on me, right? And so God gives us energy, and when you have energy, you work hard. You work long hours. If you're not making ends meet, get a second job. It's okay to work 80 hours a week when you have the energy. It's okay, all right? And so hard work is the way that God has designed your life, my life. Verse 13, we didn't look at 13, 2013. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread. That means open your eyes and work. You'll have plenty of bread. Your problem is you like sleep too much. You like rest. You like comfort too much. There's motivation toward diligence. The second motivation, God gave us all the desire to be productive and personally diligent before influencing your family. Does anyone really want to be labeled a fool or a sluggard? Just think of a sluggard. Do you really want that label? Now, there might be a few weird people that are like, yeah, sluggard, I'm going to put it on my license plate. Like, no, you don't want to be labeled a sluggard. You want to be diligent, hardworking. It's shame comes with this label of sluggard. God gave us all the desire to be productive. Do you want on your tombstone, here is someone who just couldn't get out of bed? That's all you're known for. Couldn't get out of bed. Couldn't get to work. Couldn't keep a job. Couldn't make more than minimum wage. Couldn't, whatever we saw already. You don't want that. You have a desire to be productive. It's a God-given desire. You want to produce things. You want to create things. You want to help people. That's a God-given desire that all of us have because we're made in the image of God. That we want to be influencing other people and not to be like us. Not to be like that guy in 24, like, let's have everybody take a field trip to Sluggard's house to learn what not to be. And then we're going to learn what not to be because we're going to watch the Sluggard's house. No, that's not where we want to be. So 22:29, we're past time. 22:29 says this, do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before obscure men. Someone who is skillful and diligent, kings will hire you. And when kings hire you, you get paid by a king. Okay? People want your work whenever you are skillful. They will bypass the sluggards and they will hire you. They will pay you more than you're worth at times because of the value that you bring. 24:27 is an interesting verse. 24:27 says this, prepare your work outside, get everything ready for yourself in the field, and after that, build your house. What is he saying? That's an odd verse. He's saying likely that if you are personally a sluggard, you're not ready to have a family or a house. And I have counseled people, okay, but if you can't work 40 to 60 hours a week and provide for yourself, you're not ready to get married. What are you going to do when you have kids? Honey, I'll be a stay-at-home dad. Okay, maybe. That works out sometimes, but rarely, okay? And if it's because you're lazy, that's not good. Because your wife's not going to want to leave you at home and lazy because you're going to let the kids do whatever they want, and the house is going to be a mess, and you're sitting at home watching YouTube, right? And you got to be productive. 24:27, fascinating verse. Prepare your work outside, get everything ready for yourself in the field. After that, build your house. Now you've got your life in order. Now you can influence other people. God wants us to wisely evaluate our productivity. Those verses are the same. Let's look at 28:19, and I think we'll be done. 28:19. Oh, can you go back, Dan? All right, 28:19 says this, whoever works his land will have plenty of bread. But he who follows worthless pursuits, and 12:11 is the same. It says lacks sense, 12:11 says, And 28:19 says, he who follows worthless pursuits will have plenty of poverty. So you have to ask yourself, and if you're not sure about this, ask someone who loves you, lives with you, is close to you, and says, hey, am I spending too much time on worthless pursuits? If you're not sure, ask somebody. Someone who lives with you, someone who's around you. Hey, am I spending too much time on this? And if you're wise, you're going to listen to what they say. If you're a fool, let's fight. Well, you're going to work really hard at staying comfortable. But a wise person is worried about being diligent. And you have to wisely evaluate your productivity. And sometimes other people can look at your life and say, you spend way too much time on this worthless pursuits. What do you have to show for these 12 hours, 20 hours this week that you spent on nothing? You were awake, you had energy, you accomplished nothing. Now, I watched soccer this week. The world calls it football. All right? Watched a little bit, maybe an hour. Okay, watched a little bit of YouTube this week, maybe 2 hours. Okay? And so there are times in life when life is busy. That's about it. It's all the free time. Okay? There are other things that I was doing to try to be productive when I wasn't working here at church or for church. So we have to wisely evaluate our productivity and look at what Proverbs 12:11 and 28:19 says so that we can please the Lord. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for these desires that you put in us as your image bearers, that we would be productive and personally diligent, and that we have a desire to eat. And I pray that that would motivate us to work hard. We have a desire to have a house and a car and other things that cost a lot of money. I pray that you would give us diligence and a heart of diligence. Help us to be skillful and learn and be trained and listen to wise counsel, and that you would use us for your glory and so that we can help others to follow you as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.